Southeast has plenty of special places associated with the water. Some provide inspiration, some serve as people's homes, and some offer protection from the storm. Hello, I'm Scott Foster, and welcome to Rain Country. Southeast is dotted with little bights and bays and coves. They all add character to our shoreline, and some, depending on their shape, offer a very welcome anchorage along an exposed coast. At least they're supposed to. There's one bay along the North Gulf Coast that looks like it would offer protection, but it didn't, during one of Alaska's most bizarre natural phenomenon.
Roger, Cap, Roger. We had quite an earthquake up there. A glacier split in the ocean and everything. Is all. There's quite a lot of traffic on the air now. They had quite a disturbance up there.
Yeah, that's right, Shelley, that's right. There was a tidal wave in here. And if there's any other boats in here, I don't think they made it. I don't see them and I don't hear them. But
on the night of July 9th, 1958, a powerful earthquake rocked Lituya Bay. Trees were ripped off the mountainside by the ensuing tidal wave that raced across the bay and rose to heights of 800 feet. 3 fishing boats were in the bay that night, seeking shelter from the treacherous seas of the Gulf of Alaska. This is the story of Lituya Bay and a night of terror. In 1786, the French explorer La Perouse visited this bay and named it Porte des Françaises. As his ships, the Astrolabe and the Boussole, sailed through the mouth of the bay, they were caught in a riptide and whirled completely out of control into the bay. La Perouse wrote, "In my 30 years of navigation, I never saw 2 ships so near destruction." Later, as his crew explored the bay in smaller craft, 3 boatloads of men were sucked into the ebb of the bay and pulled into the breakers coming in off the Gulf of Alaska. "21 sailors drowned. La Perouse found a bay with 3 glaciers on the eastern end. In the middle of the bay was an island which he named Cenotaph, in honor of his sailors who drowned so far from home. At the time, there were 2 inhabited Tlingit villages on the bay, but in later years, perhaps during the earthquake of 1853, these villages were swept away by a tidal wave. In 1899, another violent quake shook the Yakutat Glacier Bay area, and no one knows what occurred in Lituya Bay. But in October of 1936, a tidal wave triggered by the seismic fault that runs across the head of Lituya surged across the bay and wiped out a cabin on Cenotaph Island and a dock where several trappers were putting up salted salmon. At 10 o'clock at night on July 9th, 1958, an earthquake of 8 on the Richter scale cracked the silence of Lituya Bay. 3 fishing boats, the Edrie, the Sunmore, and the Badger, were anchored up for the night in this haven off the Gulf of Alaska. As the tectonic plates crashed together beneath the Fairweather Mountains at the head of the bay, shaking a huge rock slide from the face of Mount Astrolabe, all hell broke loose on Lituya Bay.
God, what an awful sight. You ought to see it in here. It's like the end of the world. And when this stuff starts going out into the ocean, there's going to be, it's going to block the entrance completely. It's going to be an awful mess. So I don't want to fool around with it. So you get down there by the entrance and clue me in. This will be the Edrie clear.
Howard Ulrich and his boy Sonny were aboard the Edrie when the quake hit. Today, Howard skippers a boat for the Forest Service. But he'll never forget that awful night when the face of Mount Astrolabe crashed into Lituya Bay.
I watched the splash and I saw it go up the 1,700 feet where it washed all the overburden and trees off this one mountain. And just about the time that the splash was settling into the water, this big wave came out of the bottom of it.
At an estimated 95 miles an hour, the wave headed for the mouth of the bay, shearing off trees along the shore and rising to approximately 150 feet above sea level.
Where I didn't want to be was where the wave would break, and that's right where I thought we were anchored, in that 5 fathoms of water. Well, I'd got the engine started. I was pulling the anchor, and I looked up, and I could see the wave was already to Cenotaph Island. and I watched it come over the top of Cenotaph Island. And when the wave came around the other side of that island, it was straight up and down, and it was totally black, just like and probably 150 feet high, and just totally black and full of logs, just churning. And you could see that if someone who was on that side had been just obliterated.
When Howard scrambled to raise the anchor, it wouldn't budge.
So I backed down on the anchor, and about that time the wave was there, so I had time to just throw it in forward again, turn the wheel, and start up into the wave. Well, when we started up, that anchor chain I thought was going to pull the boat under. By that time we were going up on the front of the wave, and that chain was all flying out. And when it came to the end of it, it just parted it. And it parted it right over the bow roller on the boat. Just didn't even slow us down, just like a string breaking. But it made a big racket. And the pilot house had a door right out on deck, so I looked out there to see if it pulled a winch off the deck or something. I thought it must have done some damage. And when I looked back through the pilot house door, I was looking down. We were anchored in it's kind of a cove. And when I looked out that door, I was looking down in the trees right behind the boat, and I thought that's where we're going to end up, so I didn't look back there anymore.
Howard and Sonny made it over the wave before it broke, but the Wagners on the Sunmore and the Swansons on the Badger did not fare as well.
The people on the Sunmore got their engine started. They got their anchor pulled. They were heading for the entrance to the bay. And the last that Swanson saw of them is they were both on top of the wave together, and the Swanson's bow was into the wave, and the Sunmore's stern was to the wave, but they didn't see what happened to them. We assumed that them traveling with their stern toward the wave, that when the wave broke, it made the boat broach and sunk it. The Badger, the Swansons, when they got on top of the wave and went over the spit, so they looked down and there was big old spruce trees on the spit. Had been there for probably 150, 200 years, and they were up over the top of those. And they were, average spruce tree, 150 feet high or something like that. So he said they were well above those spruce trees when they went over it. And he said when the wave did break, that it started the boat stern first down the face of the wave, and when they hit the bottom of the wave or the trough, he said the boat went under stern first and went under so deep that it got black, dark. The water came in through the stern. He had a door on the back of the wheelhouse. The water comes squishing, roaring in through there, filled the boat up, and he thought it was all over again. And yeah, the thing was, they had some big pilot house windows similar to the ones in this boat, and they didn't break out. They stayed in place, and evidently the water was trapped in the forward part of the boat. And he said after it got dark, he said he could start it started getting kind of light again, and then they came back up to the surface.
Bill and Vi Swanson survived the tidal wave, but Orville and Mickey Wagner aboard the Sunmore were never found. Lituya Bay offers the only shelter on a 100-mile stretch of the Gulf of Alaska. But mariners who lay in for the night don't always sleep well, once told the history of Lituya Bay.